Welcome to the Legal Power Hour, where we jam 60 minutes of thought-provoking discussion into a 30-minute show designed to inform, awaken, and protect our fellow American citizens. We are your co-hosts, Tom Scott and Sarah Nahidi. And today we have with us on the show, we have one of the stalwarts for justice within our wildly corrupt criminal justice system. She is a former contestant on Star Search, who was focusing on a career in music, but became a criminal defense investigator, and is author of the book, Making a Case for Innocence. I'm very pleased to introduce Miss April Higuera. Okay, so you've got quite a bit of, it's nice to meet you officially.
Likewise.
So let's get right into this, because you have a very fascinating background. I found your book excellent, and of course we want to talk to you about the things that you've done. So we do this with a lot of our guests. If you could just tell us about your background, your upbringing, what influenced you, how you basically got involved in the legal system in this particular field that you're working in.
It was purely by accident because, as you said, I was on a path or wanted to be, famous singer-songwriter, had a big rock band in New York City at the time, and I did work as a paralegal on the side for an entertainment company. And I ended up moving to Nashville, Tennessee for songwriting, and again did paralegal work, sort of as an independent contractor for a law firm there. And part of what they were doing was federal criminal death penalty cases. And they needed some extra investigation help, so I volunteered. And my first case was in South Central LA, big gang murder case that spanned the country. So I was sort of an investigative paralegal, if you will. And I found it fascinating, even though I was never, ever interested in criminal law. I thought to be an entertainment lawyer, actually. But I spent about a year working with them and then went out on my own. And I got lucky enough to get recommended to the public federal defender and the state federal defender in Nashville, Tennessee, and got a lot of work because they were so overloaded. And then my career took off. So I started doing death penalty post-conviction work.
Okay, so when you say like specifically with the death penalty post-conviction, was this with like Innocence Project, a local Innocence Project, or was it?
It's sort of after you're convicted, you go through your appeal stage, and then you go up to the state defenders, and then onto the federal defenders. So there's just all those levels that you have for appeals, and the public defenders at those levels were overloaded, so they would farm out some cases to independent contractors like myself. So I was reinvestigating cases or picking up where something had never been done in a case pretrial, doing so post-conviction, many years after. Like some cases I would get 18 years later from after the incident. They go through all these phases for 20 years in a death penalty case, and we're just crossing off all the T's and dotting all the I's before someone's executed.
April, can you tell our viewers, what was a typical investigation like?
In post-conviction?
Yes.
We do a lot of ineffective assistance of counsel investigations. So did the counsel do everything they could? And from my perspective, it was, did they investigate everything they could have? And sadly, a lot of cases weren't investigated at all. So there's sometimes no investigation pre-trial, and it's pretty hard to win a case if you don't investigate it. I had one case where the client had confessed to a murder and then later recanted, but his case was never investigated until I investigated it 18 years later and found out he was likely innocent. But it was a little too late. He got executed. He's a big part of my book, Sedley Alley case, very fascinating case. a lot of corruption on all levels, from the police up through the prosecutor. Interesting and sad.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking with someone recently. I think it was yesterday actually, and he was denying the corruption in the system. He says, people that are pro se, they just don't know what they're doing, and this, that, and the other. And I've spoken with so many people across the country, hundreds now. It's in the hundreds. And when you have this many people coming forward and saying, they have legitimate, facts. I mean, these are, well documented. Some of these cases, some are not, and whether it's police brutality to entice a confession, punching people through phone books. We had one of our guests, Bill Schuyler from Washington. He's actually judge in the U.S. District Court who ruled, and I've seen this on video, so this, video doesn't lie. There was a lower court, the U.S. District Court, ruled that a police officer is not culpable for manufacturing evidence if the officer actually believed the defendant was guilty. And the U.S. District Court.
That was in Seattle, right?
Excuse me?
Yes.
I think it was Seattle, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the video. Astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't it? It's just,
Yes.
To me, that's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
And you could see the panel in that video was astonished themselves, because the state lawyer was like, yeah, it's okay. And they're like, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't know what they ruled. I'm sure they ruled against him, but it's astonishing.
Yeah, it's chilling. I mean, I think it was the Ninth Circuit panel. Is that what you're talking about? They were in the Ninth Circuit?
I think so. Yeah. Just recently.
Yeah, it was the Ninth Circuit. Yeah. So, what was your opinion of the system before you got on? Like Sarah and myself, we were very much pro death penalty. If you committed a crime, you should be punished. And then you get the revelation that, wow, this is nothing at all like what we were taught in school. The PR machine has. What was your opinion of the system, and how has that changed since you've been involved in the work?
I had the same perspective. I mean, we live in fear. The media is telling us all these people are out there to kill us. So, of course, we want to get rid of them. And we don't have a clue what's going on. That's why I wrote that book. People do not have a clue what's going on. And yes, I thought police were honest. I thought I was safe as long as they were patrolling my street. But it's not true. And now I am against the death penalty because the system is so corrupt. You can't be killing people. We know innocent people have been executed, and the exoneration rates now are so high. I mean, how can anyone think the system works?
You just got to look at the facts, right? I mean, to me, the facts speak for themselves. I think we cracked the 2,000 mark, if I'm not mistaken, with the exonerations. It's pretty close.
It's just, the DNA exonerations alone are like 350 already.
Yeah.
But across the board, I don't know what the number is.
Are you familiar with the Todd Willingham case in Texas? Have you heard of that case?
No, sorry, I thought I had this off. No, not.
No problem. Yeah, that's another case where they think they executed an innocent person now, Cameron Todd Willingham. It got a little bit of visibility back in the early 2000s, 2004, 5, 6 time frame, and he was basically convicted on junk science. It was an arson case where the patterns of the flames came in the windows, and they said, oh, there's obviously an accelerant used. And now that these new science is saying, no, this is a natural progression of a fire, and this is like a 99.9% chance I'm sure they executed innocent people in the past, but this one's like almost proven.
Absolutely, yeah.
April, what was the primary inspiration behind your book? I know you talked a little bit about exposing and educating people on how the system really is, but how did your book project come about?
I wanted to talk to the housewife, really. I mean, so I wrote it in an entertaining fashion, even though it's very serious, disturbing cases that I talk about. But I want the average citizen to understand, and I don't think they're going to read a legal book. I mean, it's just not what they're interested in. So I try to write true crime, some of my personal stories, they're sort of memoirs. People have no idea what a defense investigator does or that we even exist. People ask me what I do, and I say I'm a private investigator. And they're like, oh, you follow people and, you know, spy on cheating spouses? I'm like, no, private investigators do that, but I'm a criminal defense investigator. So I help defense attorneys support someone who's been charged with a crime. I go out and investigate on behalf of innocents, on behalf of the defendant. And they're like, what? They're like, doesn't the police do that? I'm like, no, the police investigate your guilt. Only a defense investigator is going to investigate your innocence. And people they don't know we exist. They don't know the system. They think prosecutors and cops are honest. And even if they are honest, doesn't mean that they got it right. You know, they're so overloaded or whatever. Maybe they're getting bad information that they don't have time to check out. People just are unaware.
Yeah,
I definitely didn't know that such a genre existed. I mean, I don't practice criminal law.
Right.
For me, I would have never known that, and I didn't know that existed. So that's very interesting.
Right.
You know, to share with people.
So I've been right. That was the main focus of the book, to write that we exist. If you get arrested, make sure you have a good defense attorney and that they do investigation, because not all attorneys believe in doing investigation. And that I outline many areas and ways that the system fails in each, you know, case by case, like how this failed, how this case failed, how that case failed, just so people can understand what they're up against and what they need to, you know, support their defense. And to bring out that corruption exists on all levels.
Yeah. So April, I mean, take you out of the equation, take your field out of the equation, right? Would you say that the system is stacked heavily in criminal matters, is stacked heavily against the defendant nowadays versus like this actual presumption of innocence? Would you say there's
absolutely there is no presumption of innocence in practically speaking? I agree with you.
So you don't believe that phrase "innocent until proven guilty"
no
align with the criminal justice system?
No. I know, you know, the defendant does not have to testify, but you do have to put on a defense. Every case I've ever worked, I've been working since 2001 doing this. We've had to not prove innocence, but we've had to almost prove innocence, or at least prove reasonable doubt. You know, you can't just sit there and listen to the prosecution's case and think you're going to win. You have to show that there's innocence, or that there's flaws in their case. You have to defend your case. You're not presumed innocent. And in fact, I believe a juror is going to presume you guilty because you've been arrested, and they generally trust police and prosecutors. They're not going to prosecute someone who's innocent, right? So you must be guilty. So you have to bring them back to center at least.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that, because I was just reading a piece yesterday from a judge in the Ninth Circuit, and he said the exact same thing. Yeah, actually, it's called Innocence 2.0 or something 2.0. And he basically elaborated a lot of the problems with criminal law, and that was one of them. He says, you know, people think that just because you've been arrested,
right,
or now you're at trial, even maybe not consciously, but certainly subconsciously, I would think that, you know, and I've been through the system. I've written a book like you know, Sarah and I, you know, wrote this book to try to fix the problem. And,
right,
you know, you get these preconceived notions out of people's heads, you know.
right.
You know, they take a picture of you in an orange jumpsuit. Oh, they make you look like a criminal, right? So
that's right. And then you're broadcast on the news. This guy's been arrested. So automatically you think he's guilty. I mean, I'm at fault myself. You know, I used to drive down the street and see the cop stop someone. I'm like, oh, what did he do? You know, immediately you think he did something wrong. Doesn't mean the cop arrested the wrong person or misinterpreted the situation. You just think they're guilty because the cop has handcuffs on them. And
right,
that's really flawed thinking, because it's not true. And in fact, right now, I'm sorry, there's like I think about 2.3 million people in jail in the United States right now, something like that.
That's
The
right.
Innocence Project did some extrapolating of their numbers based on their past exoneration rates. And they estimate that 2.5% to 5% of the people in jail right now are likely innocent. That's
Right.
up to 120,000 people in jail right now that could be innocent.
It's mind blowing.
Absolutely.
And I think that shows that human nature, we have the exact opposite, you know, slogan that you're guilty until proven innocent.
I think
I
that's
think we're all, you know, kind of predisposed to thinking that way. I mean,
right. And your book, I read through it. Your book, we need more books like these because people don't understand, you know?
Yeah.
So we need to keep writing, all of us.
And speaking of books, I'd like to, point out in your book, you mentioned there was an editorial by an ex-police officer, and I'm going to try to state this verbatim. He said 15% of the cops are always honest, 15% of the cops are corrupt, and the remaining 70% can go either way depending upon the supervisor's request. Now, I'd like our viewers to think about that just for a minute. This statement came from somebody inside the system, as well as the comment I made before from the judge, as well as a comment from a retired Supreme Court justice in Florida who said, "I'm certain we've executed innocent people." So this is coming from people inside the system.
Yeah.
So, you can't paint with a broad brush, and there's good and bad in everything. I kind of refer to the police as, Satan's right hand of the system. So if there's going to be any wrongdoing, it's usually initiated in criminal matters. It's initiated by the police. So, for a police officer to make this statement, to me, this is disturbing at the very least. I mean, am I close to what he said? Can you elaborate on this at all?
That's exactly what he said. That's Reddick Hudson, I believe his name is. He's a black ex-cop. And he got a lot of backlash for that, of course. But, in my experience, I don't necessarily disagree with him. I mean, I don't work closely with cops, but I found a lot of mistakes, whether intentional or unintentional. And I found a lot of corruption with cops. I mean, I've had cops in cases I've done plant evidence because they arrested an innocent person and they realized it halfway through. I'm like, aren't you there to protect us? Why are you arresting someone you know is innocent because you made a mistake? I mean, just say you made a mistake. But they don't. So it's really bad. And once it starts at that level, the case is doomed, unless you have a criminal defense investigator who can show that this evidence was planted or these forensics don't match up. This doesn't make sense. You have to have a good defense.
So you've seen cops actually plant evidence to try to cover,
but I have in my cases, yes.
Instead of coming forth and saying, I've made a mistake. So they would rather fabricate something than come forward to say, I've made a mistake?
In that one case, yes.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah. Eventually, his partner did rat him out, if you will, and say, yeah, we did plan it.
That's crazy.
I guess he couldn't live with himself, but that's how the case got to court, because they arrested a guy they knew was innocent once they broke into his house and tasered him on his own hallway. They thought he was breaking into someone's house, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, and I've never seen this. We read about it. Of course, we write about it in our book, but I've never seen this firsthand. So you're the first guest we had that actually stepped forward and say, yes, this does happen.
Absolutely.
And, if there's one of you out there, others in your profession, I'm sure they've seen it.
Absolutely.
They've seen probably other how should I say, not playing by the rules, I guess, other instances of that.
Yeah.
April,
Yeah.
is your field a growing field?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't even know how many of us there are. So, major cities are pretty saturated, I would say, but rural areas, maybe not so much. But that's just a guess. I don't know.
And where do you do your work? I mean, are you national? Are you local? Are you statewide?
I'm licensed in Nevada and California, and I'm based in Reno, Nevada. but I do consultation nationally. So like I just consulted on a case in Maryland, and I've consulted on cases in Tennessee. And sometimes I can go to another state on a provisional license. Like I did a murder post-conviction case in Vermont where I just needed to speak with some witnesses. So I asked the PI division to grant me a 30-day license, which they did just as a courtesy. So you can get around nationally.
Very cool.
As far as the problem in the system, April, I mean, and we kind of touch upon this in the book quite a bit. Would you say that it's multifaceted? Do you agree we have too many laws, that the prosecutorial and judicial immunity is a problem, at the prison industrial complex contributes to this, the 3 strikes law, no competition in the system, which we feel is kind of one of the biggest issues. When you have no competition, you have corruption and all these other things. Do you think these are all part of the issue?
Yes, I'm not a lawyer, excuse me, obviously, but from what I've seen, there's lots of problems in the system. Multifaceted, absolutely. All levels, from cops to judges, absolutely. Even criminal defense lawyers and investigators. There's corruption everywhere. And to me, it boils down to people just don't care enough about people. You know, they don't care enough about the truth. Maybe they care more about their paychecks and their resumes. And we need to care more about people.
Right. Right. I think that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
April, what do you think, you know, some of the remedies are to, besides people taking an interest in other people and the truth, what else can we do as citizens to alleviate some of the problems that you've encountered?
I think we need to hold officials accountable. I mean, I don't want to scare cops away from being cops, you know, the ones that are good, but we need to especially hold prosecutors accountable. If you get a case from a police officer, you need to investigate it, not just rely on their case facts. I mean, prosecutors have their own investigation team that can go out and vet it, just like a criminal defense investigator vets a cop's case. And they can do the same thing. And you just need to do it with integrity and care about truth. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and then these people get elected. So they get elected based on the number of convictions, right? It's just a big problem.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. I mean, I just think we need to hold people accountable, have checks and balances, make sure we're funding. The government needs to certainly fund the defense team so that we have the resources that the prosecution has, and we can come at least to the middle, you know, to the truth, hopefully, or at least we can counterbalance and offer a good defense.
Yeah, I think it's the truth too. I mean, you know, I don't think the truth is the interest. You know, the interest is, like you kind of just said moments ago, it's the conviction rate. You know, they don't get recognition for getting the truth. They get recognition for getting convictions, and that's what, you know, some people's minds, that's what gets people elected, because some people, you know, feel that, you know, there's too much crime. You know, the hype machine is out there, so there's too much crime in the country, this, that, and the other. So we got to elect the people that are tough on crime. So that's part of the problem. And you know, you even state early on in the book, you know, that some police lie on the stand. You know, I can personally vouch for that. I've seen that multiple times.
Me too.
Yeah, right? I mean,
it's a huge problem. It's worse than what people think. So it's not just about giving someone a light sentence for a plea bargain, but it's about putting criminals back on the street knowingly. So, I mean, we're supposed to feel safe because someone got convicted, but the conviction is a plea. So I had a case where a boyfriend and girlfriend raped and murdered a 14-year-old girl, and he tied her to a tree in the woods, and she was found later, her bones, like eaten by coyotes, okay? So they caught the girlfriend, and she turned into a informant for the state in exchange for full immunity. I mean, she's a murderer.
Yeah, I got to, right.
no sentence just to get him. Well, I don't understand that. And how is that making us safer by putting one murderer back on the street just to get another one? They already had enough evidence for
Right.
both. But they
Right.
do this,
Absolutely.
and we're not
Yeah.
safer.
It's horrible. So she went free, and then her boyfriend was convicted.
Right.
Wow.
And the thing is too, April. I mean, you know, we've talked about, convicting at all costs. They want to just put a body to the crime. People sometimes forget, by convicting the wrong person, we've effectively done the same thing. We've still got a guilty person or a dangerous person out on the street. People, I think, forget that sometime, right?
Right. Absolutely. I've never had a case where we got an acquittal and the police took up the investigation again and went out hunting for the real killer.
Yeah.
They just that we won, miraculously, and that they were right, and we just, were tricky and got them off or something. But it's not true.
Yeah.
We get people off because they're innocent. Most of the time, if you get acquitted, it's likely because you're innocent. If you're guilty, you likely get some kind of charge. But they don't ever go after. They don't ever reinvestigate a case after an acquittal. I've never seen it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And just so our viewers know, I mean, you're not working on cases that people are always winding up innocent. I mean, there are some cases I'm guessing you've worked on where people were guilty, but maybe not of whatever they were charged or what have you. So you're not like, your goal is not to put murderers and dangerous people on the street. Your goal is for justice, correct?
My goal is to protect all of us from malicious prosecution and wrongful arrest, because it happens way too much. So yes, perhaps some guilty people go free in that process, but if there was no checks and balances in this way, the police and prosecution could do whatever they want to everybody. And we just need to make sure that all our rights are being honored, and that the case is investigated fully from both sides. That's all I'm doing. I never want to put a murderer or rapist back on the street, believe me.
Right.
But I do want to protect us from government's overwhelming power,
Mm-hmm. I just have one final question. What do you think? Why do you think the public is not being informed about this by the media? All these things that happen. I mean, it gets very little airplay. The media doesn't seem to be focused on any of the mainstream media doesn't seem to be focused on the injustices in the system and the real story. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I stopped watching the news about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's so off base, and it's just put so much garbage in my head. It made me unhappy. So, but I think, especially once, like, if someone's arrested, they're going to report it, because that's interesting, right? Hey, we're keeping you secure, this person's off the street. But once that arrested person was found out to be innocent, they never do a follow-up. Meanwhile, this guy's life is ruined because he's been in the public media and he's lost his job and his family, and he's innocent. But so part of it is probably because it's old news by the time he's found innocent later, or it was never a big case to begin with, to follow up reporting on it. But I also think that people want to feel safe, so reporting that police are corrupt is not a good feeling. and I don't know. I mean, this is coming out now on social media. We're not letting them get away with it as much. So, but I don't know. I can't answer really that for media. I just mainstream media. I think I don't watch it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same. CNN is fake news and Fox News is like 80% accurate, but they, like Megyn Kelly was, doing a book signing, that was news, or what so-and-so thinks about Donald Trump, that's news. That's not real news either. It might be accurate, but it's not important, I should say, important news.
Yeah, I mean, I just think everybody has an agenda. It's all about money in this society, basically, when you get down to it. But, at the same time, there are there's some really good people. There's really good cops. There's really good prosecutors. There's a lot of good attorneys fighting for people's rights and for innocence. So there's good out there. We just need to amplify the good.
And get out there, get out the truth to the public. So I feel like we're doing our part, and hopefully, you know, people will continue to expose whatever their truth is.
And hopefully they'll change and decide that they don't, you know, that they want to do the right thing. I mean, we can still make money doing the right thing, can't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this has been an excellent, fascinating conversation, April. I'm so glad you did our show. I hope this opens the eyes of many, many viewers. This is just phenomenal information.
Yeah. Thank you, April, for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Absolutely. And what is once again for our viewers, we're going to post this underneath the video, but what is your website for your company and your book's title once again?
Okay, the book is Making a Case for Innocence, True Stories of a Criminal Defense Investigator, and you can find it on Amazon or just go to makingacaseforinnocence.com. Excuse me. And my professional website is adhinvestigation.com.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, very good. I'd like to also mention to our viewers to catch our show fresh every first Monday of the month at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Or you can view it anytime afterward right here on our YouTube channel. Be sure also to subscribe to our blog for informative monthly posts at www.stloiyf.com/blog. And in addition to April's fascinating, excellent book, if you want to protect yourself to the fullest extent possible from the legal system, our wildly corrupt legal system, a copy of our book, Stack the Legal Odds in Your Favor. And please use the link provided on this page under this video to support our partner, April Higuera, so that you can financially support her efforts in the cause as well. So once again, April, thank you so much for being on our show. I think you'll have to be on another time.